All right, welcome to Clear Vision Wednesday. I am Claudia Mühlenweg. I'm the creator of the Natural Clear Vision Method, and this is my weekly show, all things vision improvement, eyesight improvement. What can you do to keep your eyesight in top shape as you get older, but also improve your vision and then keep it in good shape? And that's really what we're focusing on today, is that topic of like I made all these improvements and then I'm backsliding and life takes over. And, who can relate to that? So I have an amazing expert here today and I will bring her on stage in just a second. Before I do that, subscribe to this channel, click the little bell icon so that you get notified every single week when we go live here and giving you education around eyesight and vision improvement. All right. So Andrea Spyros, let me bring you on stage and then I will say a few more words about your brilliance. So I got introduced to BJ Fogg, the tiny habits method, I think like during COVID times, I can't remember. And it changed my life. And then you came into my life, being a part of my community and my courses. And I'm like, wait, what? You're the lead faculty of the Tiny Habits Academy. So welcome.
Thank you for having me. I've loved your courses, and I've been such a fan for a long time, and I'm just thrilled to be here. The book came out in 2020, so I'll share. No one has to buy this, but if you want to, you can. Um, and I had known about BJ for a while and was really into his work, and then started working with him, and now I train the coaches. And it's really just so many people struggle with habits
Mhm.
that it breaks my heart. And I know from doing your courses, there's a lot of great things that people can do, but if they don't do them, they don't get the results. And oftentimes they think it's them. And then they,
Uh-huh. Yeah. Yep.
right? And they don't need to feel bad. It's just that they don't really understand how behavior really works. And then once they do, they can weave it in seamlessly. Because I'm guessing too that a lot of these practices, it's not just like I'm doing these for 12 weeks and then I don't have to do them anymore. It's kind of like if you went to the gym and you're like, oh, I worked out and I got this muscle and now like I'm good for the rest of my life. It's not really the way it works.
That's what I always use too as an example because everybody gets it. It's not like you're doing it. So I think what's very important too before we dive in and what are habits and what does it mean? I think one important thing because people also ask me this question. So let's backtrack a little bit. They're like, well, are you spending all this time on, eye exercises? And anybody that knows me and you do, I don't teach eye exercises, but I teach what I call naturally clear vision habits in ways a person with normal vision uses the eyes. And we have to undo a lot of bad stuff. I always liken it to like if you want to change your diet, initially you have to read ingredient labels, you have to learn recipes, you have to invest some kind of amount of time. And then eventually a lot of these things are, you do them on autopilot. You almost right? So I just use my eyes well all day long. But when I have really stressful periods in my life, like my vision might get a little worse, and then I come back to doing some of those things. But I don't really need to do a lot of these things anymore that we're talking about today because I just like blinking. I'm just blinking right now. I can't even not blink anymore, but I used to be so good at staring like this, and I can't even do it anymore. So let's backtrack a little bit. So, what is it about habits or what comes before habits? Because one thing I always hear, and I'm sure you do too, I don't have time. I don't have time for this.
Yeah. And that's the thing is people do have time, but they just don't understand where to put things, how to make them very easy to do, and then how to make them automatic. And if I were to ask you, like, what's a habit? And in fact, if everybody's listening here, what do you think a habit is? You can type in the chat what you think a habit is, because that's really important. Because if you think more clearly about habits, you can design more effectively for habits.
Ah,
And what people are missing is they are not actually designing for their habits, they're leaving it to chance. And if you really want something to happen, you can't leave it to chance, right? I can't drive from here to San Francisco or cross country and just go like, oh, I'll just drive whatever way I want, right? I would have to kind of plan a route. Same thing for habits. So I see someone said brushing your teeth, and this is a really typical answer. Yes, and when I think about habits, when most people think about habits, it's about the thing that they are doing, right? So it's about I'm palming, I'm sunning, I'm brushing my teeth, I'm reading, I'm journaling, right? They think that the action is the habit, but a habit is actually automatic. And where people start to feel bad is they think, I'm I want to do this habit, this whether it's brush your teeth or sun or palm, and I'm not doing that habit, so there's something wrong with me. But that's just because you haven't designed for it to be automatic. So everybody listening, I want you to think not of the action, but of its automaticity. And I'm going to help you make it automatic.
Great. So, so I would love to backtrack a little bit because just from my own experience. Um, sometimes I'm like, I want to do this thing. I want to do this, habit. And as you said, as an action, like for instance, meditating as an example, right? I'm just using some real world practical things. Meditating is great. You can also palm your eyes at the same time. And then I'm like, well, today I got up late, or today I'm taking this fitness class, and then by the time I got home and showered, it's too late. And so sometimes I'm like, ah, it's not that important. And I realized for me, I first of all have to also get clarity. Like I need to connect it to my goals and the outcomes I want versus just doing stuff because somebody on Instagram said, you need to do this or that. Like does that make sense? Like I feel like once I have my goal, like because then I'm like, okay, what are the things that I need to do? Uh, right? But if I don't have this kind of commitment or the priority or whatever you want to call it, or the clarity on the goal or the outcome, then it's just one more thing on your to-do list. And then of course it feels overwhelming. Does that make sense at all? Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yes, I can completely speak to that. So really, what you've described is so typical, right? And it's not a personal flaw, it's not a moral failing. It's a design challenge, right? And so when people want to, let's just take meditation, right? That whole, like everybody's gone through that, whether it's meditation or palming or sunning or blinking, right?
Right. Yeah.
It's because it wasn't designed for consistency and automaticity, right? It was kind of like, I want to meditate, but I don't know where I'm going to meditate and I don't know when I'm going to meditate. And I haven't made it super, super easy. And when you can design for consistency and automaticity, then you can actually get things done. So if I were coaching you, I'd say, well, Claudia, when's the best time for you to meditate? And
In
then
the
you might,
morning, yeah.
in
In
the
the
morning. Okay, when's the exact moment in the morning? This is the specificity that people need to get to, right?
after I had my coffee.
Okay, so
And
yeah, so
yeah,
after you had your coffee, are you literally putting your coffee cup down and then you're going to sit in a meditation spot?
yeah.
Yeah,
But here's the thing too, Andrea. I'm gonna throw a little curveball in.
yeah,
So it's different. Like now that the sun, when I get up at 5, it's close to sunrise. I'm like, oh, now I can already maybe do a walking meditation. And then I'm getting like in the winter, takes like 2 more hours to get light. So you know what I mean? And then I get
yes.
inconsistent. So, then I'm in bed and maybe I meditate in bed, but
Yeah. So, and here's the thing, and this is again, it's going to help you think more clearly about
okay.
context is really important for your habits, your environment, and your context, your inner context of your mood, right? If you've just had a major life challenge, that's different. But winter, summer, the time change are very different, and you can design for those things. Right? So if you design for a specific moment in time, and you can even do it on specific days, like if you know you have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday routine where you're pretty consistent, then you design for that at a very specific moment in time. And you make it very, very easy to do. Then you wire it in with what we call the skill of celebration because emotions create habits. And then you build your success momentum, right? But what I'm hearing from you is what I hear from so many people. And it's that where we kind of look at our lives as a collective, right? Like, oh, I'm so busy and things are going on, as opposed to, all right, let me sit down and design and take action and then troubleshoot and iterate, right? Because we're summer's coming up now and you have one routine. So everybody listening here, whatever routine you have, maybe it's school time, right? And you have a school routine because you have kids or you go to school, you design for that. When it's summer, you design for the summertime routine. And the whole thing is when you design more effectively, you can take more consistent action. And that's what is really important. That's how tiny habits can really
I
help.
love that. So you basically, here's the funny thing too. I used to be so resistant to planning, and now I have my own business and I have to plan and use a calendar, but I was more like the go with the flow, like let's see what the day brings kind of person. But I love what you said about emotions are creating habits and then designing. So basically you're creating a plan. And I also love that idea. I never thought of it this way, that we can make changes to whatever the outside container, like school or not school, or like the hours of daylight, and so that we can design it around those things and be purposeful. And then, okay, so we can come to celebration in a moment, because I think that was a big needle mover for me too. But let walk us through, like, for instance, we all have habits. Like if I don't drink my coffee, I mean, with some of the things, it's automatic. It's almost like we have this physical craving.
Right.
But so walk us through, like, when you say designing a habit,
Yeah.
like how does that look like?
Yeah. So what it looks like, and I'll share just because we'll put this link in later. I know you've got all these links, but we won't put it now, but we'll put this link in later. I'm gonna share. I gotta switch my screen
Is
here.
that the guide you created for us?
No, I'm gonna just I'm not sharing I'm sharing the page of the video where we'll put the link to the video later. You're not gonna watch it
Okay,
now.
right.
You
Okay.
see the so this is a link to a short 3-minute video that'll walk you through the Tiny Habits method. You can also see it on page 281 and 282 of the Tiny Habits book. But basically,
Can you
it's
make that full screen so we see a little bigger? Like, anyway,
oh here, maybe I'll do this. Hang on.
at the bottom. There you go. Yeah, so that we see.
Yeah, because
Okay.
those I'm just sharing the actual web page.
Right, right. Okay.
So, so this is the tiny habits method. We've populated it. It's populated with one thing. And this is really how you design for habits. I like to start with the behavior someone wants to do. And here's a great, I know from being in your Clear Vision Club and in your 12-week programs that people are always asking, like, well, what should I do? And my answer is what I call the fast pass question. It's what can you get yourself to do? Right? You have all sorts of practices that people can do. And so I say, if you're listening and you know a lot of the vision practices, or take any habit that you want to do, what can you get yourself to do? And that's the reason that question is important. We call it the fast pass question, is because if you answer yes to that question, you have motivation and you have ability to do something, right? So if I can get myself to do something, that means I can do it and I want to do it. And those are two keys to actually doing anything. The last key is to have a reminder for it. So I would start with a behavior that you want to do. So maybe it's palming, and that basically is going to mean me sitting somewhere, right? Because I'm not going to
Right.
stand and palm, right? So I'm going to have a place that I want to sit and palm. And then I'm going to make it tiny, and we're talking super tiny. Just sitting down and putting my hands over my eyes, or sitting down, pressing a 3-minute timer and putting my hands over my eyes. Done. Um,
Really quick, tiny just means make it, instead of saying, like, let's use another example. I want to run 5 miles. Maybe we just say, I want to run for 5 minutes. Like, you start with something really small,
Tinier,
right?
tinier than that, even
Yeah.
tiny. Putting on my running shoes, stepping outside. We're
Okay.
talking, this is how you're going to design. You want to design for your worst moment so that you
Ah,
can
okay.
always do it, right? The cat threw up, your kids are late, your ride share didn't show up, the power went out, right? You could literally still sit down and put your hands over your eyes.
Right.
Right. And a habit is an action. This is my, layman's definition. Action to action automatically, right? Action to action automatically. That's a habit. I'm not thinking about it, right? So we want to make it so tiny that you can do it on your worst day. You're designing for inevitability. So if you're palming, it's just putting your hands over your eyes. The goal is to do more, right? But you want to
Right.
create the automaticity first and the consistency. And then you place it very specifically in your day. We call that an anchor moment. And that's something you already do. So if you were doing your palming after you put your coffee cup down, right? I'd want you to be close to wherever, I don't want you to walk upstairs and around the corner and 15,
Right. It's too,
20
it makes
bites.
it too complicated already. So the coffee
Ex-
maker and the palming chair needs to be close in vicinity.
Exactly. But and
Okay.
yeah, and so then you'd sit down and you know your anchor moment. I set my coffee cup on the counter and I go sit in my chair. Boom, that's it's your anchor moment, your tiny behavior. And then the celebration is what wires it in. And all of this is, BJ Fogg studied at his behavior design lab at Stanford, lots of science behind this. And celebration is the key. Now, what does celebration mean? It really just means helping yourself feel successful. Because emotions create habits, we want to create a positive emotion that helps wire in your new tiny behavior. It's wiring in the anchor moment and the tiny behavior so they go together. Now, we call it celebration because there's lots of things you do that can make you feel good. And in the guide that I've shared with you, which is totally there's no opt-in, just have it and
I will post it in
go
the
in.
link. So
Yeah,
yeah,
go in, enjoy it. There's lots of celebrations. So celebration could be like a high five. It could be a pat on the back. It could be singing a song. If you can feel good by just doing your tiny behavior immediately after you do it, right? This is not a week later. It's not an hour later. It's not a chocolate treat. It's not like that. It's immediately after. That will wire it in all together. So then you put your coffee cup down and you will sit down, cover your eyes, and then you'll say, good job, me. Or maybe you just feel good palming. You're like, oh, right? That works too. What's really important to know is that it doesn't take 21, 60, 30. It doesn't take that amount of time. And in fact, in the pandemic, everyone changed almost all their habits overnight. I haven't heard anyone yet who was like, oh, it's day 20 and I keep driving to work, right? You know what I mean?
this is so cool. So I sometimes I like the celebration. My thing that I've been using since I learned about this was like getting up in the morning because I tend to get the monkey mind like, oh God, I have to do this, I have to do this. And then before you even worst thing, you look at the phone and messages. And so I started like just saying to myself, today is a great day. And then yes, and I clap my hands. And I do it the moment my feet touch the ground when I get out of bed. And it's so helpful to just set the tone for the day. So I've been doing this literally every day. And it's like you said, it's just this feeling of like, because I know how easy it is to get sucked into like just, miserability and whatever. So I want to bring up another example. And please guys post in the chat if you have kind of some examples also on YouTube, if you have any questions or any examples. So I hear this, I always want to pull my hair out. So one of the struggles that I hear from my clients a lot is like computer and screens, and my eyes get so tired, and I want to, optometrists always say give us this catchy, but in my opinion, completely impractical rule called the 20-20-20 rule. It's like if I hear this one more time, I'm just gonna punch somebody. And it means, just to clarify, so it means when you're on screens, let's say right now on the computer, every 20 minutes get up for 20 seconds and look 20 feet in the distance. And I'm always like, first of all, you're in a meeting, you can't just get up and look. So, and who sets a timer for 20 minutes and 20 seconds? Like nobody, you do that once and you never do it again. So, but this is a real thing, right? People are looking at screens for too long, and it doesn't matter if it's computer or you're using the phone, and before you know it, 20 minutes have gone by and you're on Instagram scrolling through the reels. Guilty of that. So give us maybe some ideas or some brainstorming around that particular one when we look at screens and we get sucked into the work and
Yeah. This is where, remember when we talked about the anchor moment, right? That the biggest problem I see is people recognizing that moment in time,
okay.
especially with things that like where you're putting your coffee cup down or physical things, much, much easier. And so here's what I suggest. First of all, practice habits that you can get yourself to do that are easy for you to do. Right. And even just fun habits. They don't even have to be related to vision to begin with to learn the skill of habit building, right? Just like if you were learning a new language, you wouldn't start with the most complicated character, right? You'd start with the easiest stroke of the easiest character, and then you'd work your way up. And so, like with vision habits, some of them, like that 20-20-20, are totally impractical. And
Yeah.
it's very hard. Like, who knows intuitively when 20 minutes is going on? And even if you do set a timer, it could be your time to speak, right? Someone could be talking to you at that
I
moment.
know, right? I
Right?
know.
So I would design for other habits that you can actually do, right? Like that's a great catchy thing. And a lot of times people make things that are very catchy but impractical. So if you're on a meeting, maybe the anchor moment is when you click off the Zoom meeting and you design a new behavior around that. Um, or like have a conversation, right? So I was thinking about this before I came in. People tend to rely on motivation, right? They think like I'm super motivated. I'm in this 12-week program, but as BJ says in Tiny Habits, motivation is like a wave, right? And
Mhm. It's dopamine coming and going.
right. And it's like this. And no one goes to the ocean to surf and if it's flat, says to themselves, oh, I suck. I'm really lazy. I'm
Yeah.
just surf today. Right. But that's exactly what we do to ourselves when our motivation is low. And that's another reason to design with Tiny Habits method, because you're designing for that lowest level of motivation. And then you can always do more. And so when you do have high motivation, right, at the beginning of a class, or you just wake up and you have a lot of motivation, that's the time to harness that high motivation to do hard things, right? So you can skill up. If you have some vision practice that you're not so sure of, watch the videos that you have, right? If you wanted to learn something, so you skill up, then you set up. And that's like set up your environment, have your tools near you. Maybe you need to have blue light blocking glasses, put those where they need to be. So set up your environment. And then sometimes you need to speak up. Now, I am one person that I work with, I work virtually with my business partner. And because we control our own time, we do take 20-minute breaks. But I spoke up and I said, I'm in this vision class and I'm realizing I need to take a break every 20 minutes. Will you set a 20-minute timer? And then I will set a 3-minute timer to do other things, right? And I have habits that I do. Now, she started palming with me, but now she does planks, right? Because she's not as much into her eyes. But I will do some of my vision practices that I've learned through Claudia. So she says 20 minutes. After she says 20 minutes, I go and do, one of the practices that I've decided for that day, right? And so it's always, I really want people to think that this is about designing effectively, and it's not even as big as planning, right? Because when I think about planning, I think, oh my God, I've got my planner over
I
here.
know, right? It scares
Right?
me before. Yeah.
Right. You're just going to design for one tiny habit recipe, right? Where are you going to put it? And how small can you make it? What's your celebration going to be? And then get in motion, right? Because this is not it's about iterating, right? And so it's a playful method. And if it doesn't work, you just iterate and you troubleshoot again. It's not about all or nothing. It's really about what's working for you. And that's the thing. You want to match yourself to the right action, right? Something you can get yourself to do. And then you want to match the action to the motivation, the lowest motivation level, right? And when you do that, you're setting yourself up for success so that you can, because basically success will lead to success, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you talked about, so I want you to read, you talked about skill up and then I have speak up, but can you
Set
go
up.
through those things again
Yeah.
a little bit because
So
I think that's important.
yeah. So skill up. That means improve your skills. Learn how to do something, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's watch a video or just practice it a little bit. Like if you don't quite know how to do the thing, practice it a little bit. And then set up, right? Set up
Uh-huh.
your environment, put the tools that you need around you, clear an area if you need to clear an area, make it easier to do. And then speak up because sometimes this is the most overlooked thing.
I
Sometimes
think so too. Yeah.
you just need to ask. And it's like, I say it all the time. People are like, well, how do I do this? And how do I do that? And it's like, they're trying to design their behavior without including other people that are around them. And I was like, well, why don't you just ask if they'll do that with you or for you or support you in that, right? And especially if you live with other people, right? You may need them, like maybe you have a routine in the morning and you think, you know what? If I didn't sit with them so long, having breakfast, maybe I'd have time to meditate and maybe just ask, hey, can we move this a little earlier? Or can we shorten it a little bit? Or sometimes speaking up is very empowering because other people gives other people permission to speak up too. And maybe they want to support you in your habits. Like my business partner, I mean, she planks, but she palmed for a little bit too. And she's supporting me in my habits, and I support her in hers. And so people really do, hopefully, you're surrounded by people who want to support you. So it's skill up, set up, and speak up.
I love this. And the setup is a little, it's also, if I mean, that's one thing I picked up from Atomic Habits was also that, like, I want to use my massage balls to relax. So I leave them out and I don't put them all neatly away. So I have my yoga mat laying out. It just makes it easier. The setup is right there. I also, maybe these are good examples. So I'm not meeting anybody for dinner anymore. So if somebody is local and we want to do something, I'm like, hey, let's go for a walk. Let's meet. Or when I talk to somebody on the phone, not Zoom, I try to do as many calls on the phone now versus Zoom. And I'm like, okay, I put my headphones in and then I go for a walk. That way I easily have been getting my 10,000 steps a day. It's just moving more things like asking, right? Like you said, can we talk at this and this time? Can it be on the phone? Not everything. And sometimes you need to jot down notes, but so like you said, asking for those things or, when my former boss, that was a long time ago, used to schedule meetings at 1 p.m. at lunchtime. I'm like, can we make these meetings like 2 p.m.? Like, because I would love to eat my lunch outside and be in nature and don't sit here in the conference room. So yeah, he's like, okay, so sometimes, like you said, it's asking and trusting that it's okay and say it in a nice way, not like. So that's really amazing. I love what you also said about the lowest your worst moments. So designing habits, I think that's a mistake we all make. We have that, like you said, that motivation, and then we design it for that like super high wave, and then obviously that cannot last very long, and then we kind of feel bad, and I'm not good enough. I suck at this. I knew I would fail, and I think we all have very good negative self-talk. Um,
Yes.
so any other examples? Let me look if there's questions on YouTube too, if there's any
Yeah,
questions.
and I will say when we set up our environment with a tool that you want to use, we call that staging, right? So that's part of
Staging.
the habits method. We call that staging. So if I have, like my blue light glasses, I might have I might just buy extra pairs. Like talk about setting up your environment. If I have a couple computer areas or things that I use, I might buy a couple, set them underneath so that when I step up to my computer or when I open my computer, I'll grab my blue light glasses and pop them on, right? You have some habits that you just talked about, which are after, kind of embedded. After someone asks me to go to dinner, I will say, can we do a walk and talk meeting? Or you didn't call it a walk. I call it a walk and
Yeah,
talk.
yeah, I like that. Yeah.
I call it a walk and talk. I'm like, hey, after someone says, can we do a Zoom meeting? I say, how about a walk and talk? Right? So you have some of those embedded in there too. There's a lot of habits that we have or we shift. And I bet you it didn't take you 21 days to think of that. You just thought about it and you're like, I'm going to ask, I'm going to speak up. And I think people do really design for their high motivation levels. And it's just like it doesn't set you up for success. And really, you want to set yourself up for success because that's what leads to more success. So design for your worst moment, design for when everything's going haywire, and then you'll always be able to do it. And ultimately, people, this is one thing that people always ask me is like, well, how is, one push up or, just putting my hands going to work? And you can always do more, number one. And again, it's action to action automatically. So you're putting your coffee cup down, you're sitting down, you're putting your hands over your eyes, right? That's going to lead to more. Like if you had to decide every day to breathe, we'd all be dead.
Oh
Right?
yeah, 100%.
You know what I mean?
I
So
love it. I
habits
love
are
this.
easier, right?
I love this idea of doing it simple, right? For instance, couple of things. I have them down in my trash can. I didn't want to bend down, but not trash can, but the container. It looks like a trash can. But my yoga, the myofascial therapy balls that I'm using in all so I have balls on the floor in the bathroom. I have them in different points, so I can, I have them right here. I can step on them and massage my feet, make it super easy. The other thing, that you talked about. making it super easy. So it's the second, maybe you just say, I do 30 seconds of palming and then it feels so good. Same with the balls. Once I do it, it feels so good. You always end up doing longer. But if I say I'm going to roll on my balls for 10 minutes, I'm like, I have all this other stuff to do. So I think sometimes, like you said, make it super easy to do. Another thing I started doing when I'm reading books, I have a physical bookmark and I put it into like 2 pages ahead, or depending on what book it is, or 1 page ahead. And every time I hit the bookmark, I look up, I look around the room. So because, like you said, the physical thing is sometimes a little easier.
Mhm.
But that's a way also when you read physical books to do the near far, just kind of look up. I have an interesting thing. Maybe you have an eye chart in your room or something that, maybe you put stickers on it and it's kind of fun for you to look at that. And that's a really great way to do that too. I don't
That's
see
a
any
great habit.
questions. Yeah. This was so incredibly helpful. Let's see. Yeah, I don't see any questions on YouTube. I see
It's the
positive
book.
comments.
Stephanie, this is the book Tiny Habits. Smart
Yeah.
Choices to Change Everything. There's actually you again in the links that Claudia will put down there, there's a way where you can have a real live human habit coach coach you through any habits that you want, whether they're naturally clear vision practices or just other habits that you want to do. So you can for free, totally free, anytime you want.
So yeah, thank you so much. We have all the links there. This has been incredibly helpful because I think the idea of making it tiny, having the setup and making it really easy and designing it and also designing it for your lowest
Love
motivation, right?
motivation. Designed for your worst day when everything's going haywire. And then most importantly, celebrate right afterwards, right? You want to wear it in immediately afterwards. So, and then you can do it, right? Like just thinking differently, you'll be able to design more effectively and you'll see more success. I guarantee.
I used to teach yoga, and I always said this, the hardest yoga pose is actually unrolling your mat and staying on the, like, getting, like, literally putting the mat out is the hardest pose because once you have it out, it feels so good. And then we always see in yoga, we always have this ceremony. Some might say Om and beginning and end, maybe not, but we all sit there, acknowledge each other, say Namaste, and it's kind of, you can also see this as a celebration. So there is a whole ceremony around it, and that makes it so wonderful. And I think in COVID times, that's kind of what I missed because in COVID times, it was just easier to bail out, but I still did it. And even if it was just 10 minutes out of a 60-minute class. So
Yeah, because really, it's really about consistency.
yeah.
Really think about it. And the thing is, and we see this in the Tiny Habits Free 5-day program all the time, is that just doing 3 tiny habit recipes can lead to other big effects in people's lives. And I still see it when I do some new habits. I will find I'll do something challenging that I didn't even really think I was going to do, but it showed up. I had someone who I coached in that program. He was a writer, and he on the third day he said, "I'm 42,000 words into a novel I never thought I'd write." Right? Just from opening his journal and writing one line in, or opening his thing and writing one line. And then he made phone calls to producers, right? He hated to do that. And on the third day, he's like, I got up and I made all these hard phone calls. And so when you see yourself succeeding, it's not just seeing yourself succeeding, it's experiencing yourself as a person who's doing the things that you said you wanted to do. And no one can take that away from you. Right? Once you experience yourself doing your vision practices, you have seen that you have begun to be the type of person who takes care of their eyes, right? And that is powerful.
Well, thank you. Yeah, this was really helpful. I hopefully type in the chat, you guys, if this was helpful. And maybe I think you wanted to give people some homework, so to speak. So, what are some things that you want to create? And then maybe think about that recipe of, making it very easy. Like, can you repeat the recipe one last time before we come
Yeah,
to?
yeah, yeah. I will. And there is and I think we'll put in the chat the video link so they can watch that 3-minute video. But here's the tiny habits method. It's an anchor moment, something you already do. I want you to think of this as a snapshot in time, right? Like, what are you doing? You're setting your coffee cup down, you're sitting down, you're walking out your door, you're closing your door, you're buckling your seatbelt. And then I want you to make your behavior so tiny that it's basically a breath, right? That you can do it on your worst day. And then I want you to find some way to celebrate. It could be a song, a sound effect, a, pat on the back, a verbal affirmation to feel good right immediately after you do that. And remember, you can always do more, and you probably will. But all you need to do is this tiny behavior, and then you will be on your way to growing your habit.
Yeah, I think that's really the gist of it. You get doing something, you feel good about yourself. You feel good about yourself, you're more likely to continue doing it. Well, thank you so much. Do you want to quickly, I know we put the links in there, but tell people where they can find you and
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn. That's primary. I do have an Instagram and I do have a Facebook, but primarily I'm on LinkedIn. I do a podcast called The Brain Podcast. We've been on hiatus for a little while. We're about to resume. We've got lots of great healthy practices in there with my partner, Dr. Shabnam Das Kar. If you have an organization that you want me to come and speak to about habits and behavior design, you can either get me on LinkedIn or BD3 Solutions com and learn more about me there. I so appreciate you. I have enjoyed being a member of your club, and I love coming on here and supporting your people because really, if they can make things habits, they can get things done and they can feel better about themselves.
I know exactly. That's what it's all about, not doing a bunch of eye exercises. Thank you so much, Andrea. This was amazing. And obviously, people, you have all the links there. Follow her, make sure you connect with her, and start implementing little tiny habits into your life with whatever you really want to do. Like this is, you can choose, but don't just leave it up to chance. I think that's the number one thing. Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna close the YouTube live. So make sure you subscribe so that you get these cool talks every single week and you can ask questions live. Otherwise, we will resume in our Clear Vision Club with the after party. One more thing I wanted to say before we jump off. We have a little mini training coming up, the 4 days. It's called See Better in Just 4 Days. I think you've done this too in the past. So it's the way it's designed that I designed it is based around tiny habits, super easy things that people can do. It's not called tiny habits, but it's designed around this idea to make it super easy. So the link is also in the show notes. Make sure you sign up. It starts on Monday. Anything you want to add about that little training?
I've done it before and I loved it. I'm honestly a super big fan and it's valuable. I think what people don't really realize is that they think like, oh, it's just so simple. But those practices, even just those practices, if you implement them and do them consistently, you'll see better really quickly and see a bigger.
Exactly. And I do it with live coaching. And so you get super short little videos just like that
Yes.
that you can implement. And you get the little thing at the end that you know how to continue. Well, thank you, Andrea. I will finish the YouTube now. So subscribe, follow Andrea on LinkedIn. It's a place where once in a while, I go in and I see all these birthday messages from 6 months. I'm like the opposite of you. All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Andrea. This